In White Knuckle, you take on the role of a mysterious and unnamed person trapped in the bottom of a decaying silo called Substructure 17. Your goal is to climb your way to freedom by using precise movement controls and managing your inventory carefully, because each item you carry weighs you down and makes climbing harder. White Knuckle is a roguelite game, which means you'll be dying a lot, and technically you should get upgrades to aid you on future runs, but more on that later. White Knuckle certainly has a lot going for it in themes and atmosphere, but it also falls down in a number of areas too. Join me as we dive deeper into the depths of White Knuckle to explore the goods and bads of this roguelike climbing game, and to see whether it's worth picking up right now, waiting for a sale, or not buying at all. When you first start White Knuckle, this game really reminds you of the TV show Silo. Not just because you start in a big silo, but because of the atmosphere of dread and the strange unknown nature of who you are and how you ended up at the bottom of a giant dystopian silo. The sound effects lend to this. Cracks, pops and hisses can help add to the tension and atmosphere, and really this is the best part of the game. White Knuckle's controls are fairly simple. Left click controls your left hand and right click controls your right hand, and you use both of these to climb up walls. There's also a stamina system, and you can see this when your white gloves or white knuckles turn from white to red, and the deeper red they go, the more stamina you're losing until you eventually fall. You also have to manage your inventory. There's a quick select slot with Q and E, so you can equip one item to be quickly selected in each, but you can also just completely fill up your inventory with items, but in that case you would have to bring up the inventory and select them with the mouse, which is very difficult to do when you're actually climbing. There's a bunch of enemies that you have to either tackle or avoid in the game, and it's very Half-Life-like. And one early enemy I'll tell you about is the tentacle monster, which, if anyone who's played Half-Life will know that they grab onto you and suck you upwards. The substructure itself also tries to kill you as you're climbing by raising the water level, or removing oxygen, and so on if you take too long in one area. The controls are slick and responsive, and I didn't once die because it didn't register the inputs. You'll have pieces of rebar and hammers and pitons to help you climb, and these can be used to create a ladder wherever you want. There are also items like cans of food to regenerate stamina, and a swinging and momentum system when you climb ropes. There are multiple ways to climb up the substructure too. As you climb, you'll periodically get to rest areas that have vending machines where you can trade currency for items to help you out. And the overall idea of the game is to just keep climbing and outrun and outlive your previous run. In my opinion though, this is where the cracks start to show. White Knuckle is a roguelite, but the roguelite elements don't really show themselves early enough into the game. For example, you'll find yourself climbing the silo for 30 minutes, then falling to your death and starting at the bottom all over again. But where in most roguelites your items will carry over, or you'll at least have some progression, that simply doesn't happen in White Knuckle. To be completely honest with you, I feel like roguelite here is just code for we made the game hard. And while White Knuckle does have a compelling theme and atmosphere that makes you want to find out what on earth is happening in its dystopian world, the game actually fails to be very fun in its moment-to-moment gameplay. I started to find myself bored with climbing the same areas over and over again with little change. Now, this brings us to the fact that White Knuckle is currently in early access. While they do have a publisher, developer Dark Machine states that they've chosen to use early access as a way to get feedback throughout the development process, and that there is still a long way to go. There are currently only 3 of the 7 planned regions of Substructure 17 in the game, which means that it is currently unfinished, and the Steam store page states that Dark Machine will still be working on the game for around a year before it's fully finished. With all of that said, what is in the game is very well polished, so there's no need to disregard White Knuckle on that front. It's more of whether you want to buy into the game when just under half of the content is in it, which brings me to our verdict. White Knuckle has a compelling premise, and its strengths lie in how it creates an eerie atmosphere that makes you want to find out more about how you ended up in the dystopian substructure 17 and just what on earth is happening. However, as I climbed time and time again, I found myself not having fun in the game's moment-to-moment gameplay. White Knuckle labels itself as a roguelite, but those mechanics are too few and far between for that to really matter, and rather than saving aspects of your progress each run, it just means you die a lot. I will sometimes score early access games if I feel they hold up as a fully fleshed out game despite any future updates, but I simply don't feel that it would be the right thing to do in the case of White Knuckle, because the game currently has 3 out of 7 planned regions in the game and around a year to go before full release. White Knuckle isn't a bad game by any means, and it has a lot going for it in the world building department, but to say that I didn't get bored of climbing quite quickly would be a lie. White Knuckle has a demo on the Steam store, and I urge anyone who is interested in buying the game to give it a go first. If you find yourself enjoying the gameplay and are fine with the fact that the game is still being developed in early access, then by all means White Knuckle is a safe purchase, especially considering the game already has a publisher. For everyone else, I would recommend waiting until the game is fully released to find out what, if anything, changes with the game in the next year.